Hello, kids. Let's get it underway. It's the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Conveniently enough, my name is Matt Murphy, and I've got 3 hours to thrill you, to educate you, to inform you, and hopefully to entertain you. Thank you for spending a little time with us, whether you spend 5 minutes with us or the full 3 hours. I'm so appreciative. Hope the day's gone well so far on this Thursday, November 21, 2024. It is our episode 699 of these visits together on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and I've enjoyed almost every one of them. There was one back in 2022 that I didn't care for that much, but otherwise, I think we've had a pretty good time. It's Locks for Trump Day 264 full days. I've been growing out my hair. Originally, it was in anticipation of a brand new president-elect, and now it's in honor of said same, the brand-new president-elect of the United States of America, and we'll probably carry these locks till Inauguration Day. Lots to discuss on this day. Of course, we start with the breaking news, as Chris Hand discussed with you during his show, that Matt Gaetz, the former House of Representatives member from the state of Florida, has now formally withdrawn. This is the way that they do it, withdrawn his name from consideration. Team Trump claims, or Team Trump says to several media outlets, that they were aware that he was withdrawing his name. Before this announcement, it was believed that there was information that was set to come out regarding the ethics report in the House of Representatives that would have, frankly, become a distraction to the process. I'm a little bit concerned that Matt Gaetz has withdrawn at this early time, in as much as if he were good enough to be nominated, he's good enough to get to January, one would think. Because the media and the liberals are not going to stop with Matt Gaetz. As I mentioned to Chris Hand, if you were listening to our crossover moments ago, and I'll say it again, tell me again the nominee that has gotten glowing reviews by the mainstream media that Donald Trump has presented in any capacity in his United States cabinet. And if you don't believe that the mainstream media, the awful garbage mainstream media like #NeverCNN, #NeverCNN, and I focus on them more than any of the others because I think they're the worst. They're the worst. I mean, with MSNBC, I mean, they're losing listeners right and left because viewers right and left, because the only viewers they have are those that are left of center. And those left of center folks aren't watching the news right now because they're sucking their thumbs and they got their lips pooched out because they lost. But CNN tries to claim that they are, quote unquote, down the middle of the road, which is nonsense. And anyone that watches this organization knows it. But I tell you not to. I'll watch so you don't have to. You don't think has CNN bothered to praise any of the appointments on the part of Donald Trump? Of course not. They're not going to praise anything Donald Trump. Secondarily, if you don't believe that they will move on to the next kill, then you are sorely and sadly mistaken. I would suggest that perhaps you've not been paying enough attention. So we'll get into that. That's first up on the show today. Breaking news coming down some 30 or so minutes ago, and we will discuss it and break it down on the Matt Murphy Show. In the meantime, Ken Weaver's behind the glass in News Closet B, making sure that everything that comes out of our speaker sounds as good as possible from a news perspective. Also doing said same is the one and only Bell K. We call him Headless Bell because he chooses not to participate on the television side of things. He does from time to time chime in on the audio side of things. He also entitles our television visits together, our episodes, if you will, and we'll get into that in a moment. Hello, Bell.
Hello, Matt Murphy.
How's it going?
Good. Making donuts in here.
Good talk. Good talk.
Thanks. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So if you want to view us, you may do so on Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. We appreciate you doing so. And when you do, you'll see a title there. And that is a carefully constructed dynamic by which Bell K draws in viewers to Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. He does so in this manner. Just listen to this and tell me if you read this on YouTube or Facebook, if you would want to click on this episode and see what that knucklehead on the radio is talking about and why he's on television. Bell, episode number 699 is entitled,
Matt Murphy wants your resumes. He's Trump's new attorney general point man for the search. So can I give you my resume?
Yeah, sure.
Throw it in the garbage?
It's a little bit of a disqualifier. Already? I mean, I have already vetted you over the last 3 years. And
hey, I'm cleaner than Gaetz.
Well, maybe so. What about Weaver back there in the background? You think he might be a good nominee?
Weaver acts like he's like all nice and friendly and everything, but at the end of the day, we all know he's a mob boss.
Skeleton in those closets. Oh man, wouldn't that be freaky deaky?
If I was a mob boss?
If Ken Weaver was a mob boss, and with the same attitude, he's like issuing hits and that sort of thing and laughing.
Hey, Brother Fast Mo, want to go fishing?
Brother Fast.
How about you, Quiet Larry?
I got a newscast to do. Get me my money.
Two-toed Tony. Why do they call him Two Toes? Have you seen him? Oh, man, those guys. Everybody, Stinky Joe. Get out of here, Stinky. You know, Stinky Joe wouldn't do good on hits because you can smell him coming.
Right.
Yeah, that's a problem.
They would know there was something up.
Hey,
Stinky
Weaver.
Joe is responsible for getting rid of the bodies, the acid and the stink and all that stuff, so.
That's probably the,
Yeah, that is a nice boat, Brother Fast Mo. Now get on it.
Oh,
Let's go catch some fish.
Poor Fredo. Every time you say that, I just think of Fredo out there fishing with the guy in the boat. And everybody knows what's about to happen to Fredo.
Well, remember that happened to, I can't say his name, but remember that happened to the guy on The Sopranos.
Yeah, I do. Big P?
Yeah, Tony and Silvio, and I can't remember the other guy took him fishing.
Were you a Sopranos guy, Weaver?
Oh, I freaking loved it.
I bet you were. People get mad at me. Like, if I told you that I never watched The Sopranos, that's one thing. And people would say, man, you got to watch. I've watched probably 8 or 9 episodes of The Sopranos, enjoyed every single episode that I've seen, and I haven't watched the rest, which seems to make people madder. It's like, you saw some of it, but you didn't watch all. What's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't know. I got busy.
You have to realize when you've hit a point where your request for a favor involves not being shot in the face, you probably screwed up somewhere.
Yes. I don't think I would make it in the mob. I think I would be killed.
Oh, I know I would.
In a couple of days, I'm pretty sure.
Ken would be running the joint after 48 hours.
I know. See, Ken says that, but he would.
That's like if anybody, asked to do you a favor, no thanks, I'm good.
I mean, just take Ken Weaver's attitude. You're right, Bell. If you take this exact attitude and just put him in a basement somewhere, having a drink in a corner, and you have to come see him. He's like, hey, guys, come on over, sit down.
Or in the kitchen cooking some kielbasa while somebody comes in and asks for $5,000. And now I got to turn my back on you.
Oh, you need some money, do you? Oh, I thought I gave you money last month. What happened to that money?
There's a bunch of plastic on the floor and hanging up on the walls.
Oh, no, that's going on while you're talking to the guy, right? Somebody else is laying. Oh, don't mind him. We're doing some construction work later.
Yeah, we're going to be painting.
Which is mob code for killing people.
Do you paint houses is mob code for do you kill people?
And your head is the brush.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for you.
Oh, I would not make it in that world, man. Would not do it.
Oh, it was. It's Friday thing. So you got some breaking news in there, Ken Weaver. Attorney General Matt Gaetz will not be the Attorney General.
He will not be the Attorney General nominee, and apparently President-elect Trump says, "I greatly appreciate the recent efforts of Matt Gaetz in seeking approval to be Attorney General. He was doing very well, but at the same time did not want to be a distraction for the administration, for which he has much respect. Matt has a wonderful future, and I look forward to watching all of the great things he will do."
He's going to be fabulous. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be perfect. Matt Gaetz will be a part of our future endeavors in administration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So that was my question, does the president, what does the president-elect think about this? And, he's all about it.
Here's what I would, I wouldn't dare suggest that I know better than the president-elect himself, but I would suggest that who knows how this started, but I promise you if it started with Matt Gaetz thinking maybe I should just go ahead and withdraw, the first call that he made was to Donald Trump, obviously.
Absolutely.
So I feel like the Trump team, they were in concert with whatever decision was made by Matt Gaetz. In other words, who knows where it came from first? Maybe it came from Team Trump first.
Yeah.
Maybe Team Trump said, hey, Matt, let us go ahead. We're going to have to read this ethics investigation because I promise you if they wanted to, they could get their hands on it. And we're going to see how much of a distraction we're talking about, because here's the reality.
Oh, that much? Well, we got to talk.
I mean, right. So, and everyone says, well, Biden's Department of Justice cleared him. And I understand that. And as true as that is, something does not have to be illegal to be a complete distraction.
Right.
And when you get into the business of explaining to me why, I mean, I'm not saying this is happening. I'm just using it as an example. Bella and I were talking about this before the show, Ken. Like, if I start explaining to you how, no, Ken, she was 18, and that's the legal age in so-and-so and so, I mean, you're already losing.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
if you're having to defend yourself,
Exactly.
you've already lost.
Exactly.
Right. Oh, no, if the words, but the age of consent comes out of your mouth, you're already losing in politics.
If the word but comes out of your mouth.
Or if but goes into your mouth.
Right. You got to,
Or if you have to say, I didn't realize how old she was. Didn't matter at the time.
When I found out, I was as shocked as anybody. Yeah, none of that's good.
Look,
that's good.
You get in these hearings. I mean, go back to the Kavanaugh hearings.
I can just imagine.
I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, I know it.
I can imagine somebody from Trump's organization calling him, going, "Yeah, the boss man needs to have a conversation with you." And then Trump gets on the phone and just takes over the conversation and is like, "Yeah, we're going to be talking about your withdrawal speech."
Well, and let's say we did get to the hearings. Couldn't they put these accusers there in the hearing? I mean, could
sure,
they have
did
them
with Kavanaugh,
testify?
didn't they?
Well, yeah, but that was for.
So that's a question, and it's because there are non-disclosure agreements, perhaps. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that would prevent an individual willing to testify to come forward. I mean,
Anita Hill.
We do it in Supreme Court nomination processes all the time. So why wouldn't you do it in cabinet level position process? I don't recall, Ken, specifically there being witness testimony during these confirmations, but I don't know why they couldn't.
Right.
I mean, they can do whatever they want.
And again, he has never been charged.
No.
But it's like what you guys were explaining. He's going to have to explain.
Right.
If that happens. And like you said, that's where the distraction comes in.
So Matt Gaetz already gave up his seat in the House of Representatives. Let me walk you through my theory on all of this.
All right.
Matt Gaetz. So here's my theory, and it is completely unfounded in any sort of evidence. I'm just speculating like the rest of everyone. Okay. So Team Trump recognizes that there's so much there that they probably are never getting this nomination through. They can leave him as the nominee, and he draws a lot of fire over the next several months, or they can, in concert with Matt Gaetz, withdraw his nomination. After withdrawing his nomination, or in the midst of deciding whether or not they're going to withdraw his nomination, Donald Trump, DJT, calls up old Ron DeSantis, his old buddy Ron DeSantis down in Florida. Now, I don't know, and I'll look it up during the break. I don't know the exact processes for replacing a United States senator in the state of Florida, but in most states, the governor appoints the replacement until such time as there is a special election or until you reach a regular election. So walk with me now. We realize that maybe there's a little too much regarding Matt Gaetz for the nomination for Attorney General. You pick up the phone and you say, listen, we're taking one of your senators in Marco Rubio to be Secretary of State down in Florida. Why don't you go ahead and appoint Matt Gaetz to be United States Senator from the state of Florida, which doesn't require any sort of Senate confirmation. We'll move on to our next AG pick, be it Jim Jordan or Chip Roy or whoever it might be. There are plenty of great individuals that would be fabulous nominees. And there, Matt Gaetz, you don't have to worry about it. You're now a United States Senator for at least the next couple of years. How about that for an idea?
Yeah. I can see that.
Did Matt have to pull out before the governor replaced him? Dave wants to know. No, I don't. I mean, Matt, yeah. I mean, obviously, if the post is not open, that would not necessitate a replacement. So I'm going to find out what the state of Florida says about this matter as we go to break, and we'll come back. If you want to get involved, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN, either via the phone lines or the super text line. They are wide open and available until 3 o'clock on The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I had a wonderful opportunity recently to visit the Men of Valor campus in Antioch. It is on Valor Ridge, and what a wonderful organization and what a wonderful campus. Because Men of Valor recognizes that as much as they minister and disciple to men inside of the prison system, that transition between prison life and life back in our community is so vital, it's so crucial, and it really does depend those months between the time that men leave the prison system and they reintegrate into society are vital in determining whether or not they become productive members of society or if they return to a life of crime. I've mentioned to you that less than 10% of the graduates of Men of Valor return to prison in any form. That is an incredible rate of return. Over 90% of the men who graduate become productive members of our society, thereby saving all of us money. Men of Valor. Go to movministry.com. Please give as you can or give of your time. Volunteers are needed within the system, within the prison system, also on their campus. movministry.com. That's movministry.com. Hello, friends. Matt Murphy here for U.S. Pest. And not only does U.S. Pest present the Matt Murphy Show on a daily basis, they present themselves before the general population as a pest control company that works. They work for your business, and they work for you to eliminate pests in your home and on your property every single day. Friends, they don't eliminate pets, like I just said. They eliminate pests, which is difficult if you're on a roll when you screw that up. So here's the bottom line. Actually, I would say this. They're safe for the pets, safe for the kids, which is important, too, because you want to make sure that you're getting the things that you don't want in your home and you're protecting the things that you do want in your home, and U.S. Pest does those things as well. J.K. and Erica understand that it's important to continue your pest control over the winter months. You want to get in front of any of those invasive pests that are coming inside of your home, trying to take advantage of the warmth of the season. Full-service pest control, termite protection, and crawl-space service available at U.S. Pest. Go to uspest.com. That's uspest.com. Or call them today, 590-1260. 615-590-1260 for U.S. Pest.
We're going to get more information on the Matt Gaetz bombshell coming up at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Love it, love it, love it. As Ken Weaver back in News Closet B. Bell Case behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as possible. My name is Matt Murphy. I'm in studio hoping you're having a wonderful afternoon. We're right at the dead end of Music Row in beautiful Music City, Tennessee. So, that's true.
Truth.
That's true. I always get very nervous when I interrupt myself. It makes me nervous. I don't know.
But you do it all the time.
That's true. I do it in real time, and then I do it where,
and there's times I help.
I don't like that you've eliminated all the Kamala Biden drops, and now you just got me left. Do you still have? Oh, well, I guess I am. Yes, I am. Oh, good old Joe. Joe, we're gonna miss Joe.
We got to keep those Biden drops, man.
They're so good. They're so good. Can I get just a taste of corn pop? Just please. Just a corn pop was a bad dude.
It's never going to get old.
It's never going to. It's a natural fact. So that's right. It's a natural fact. So here's my theory, and I won't belabor it. But if you come to the realization early on enough, and I'm not justifying the early termination of his candidacy, but I don't know everything that Donald Trump knows. I don't know that everything that Team Trump knows. I don't know, and nor do you. I know that Matt Gaetz was a burr in the saddle of Democrats and Republicans. And for many of us, we appreciate that. Matt Gaetz was a type of personality that I never cared for, but I appreciated the fact that he was a disruptor. I'm a chaos man. I like the idea of little fires burning and people having to go around and put them out. I like the idea of a disruptor being a part of the process to make sure that those that are in control don't get quite too comfortable with their roles of positions of power. That said, he was, from a personality standpoint, never my cup of tea, but I loved the idea of his nomination for Attorney General because I understood the chaos that it would cause in Washington, D.C., because he's not afraid of anybody. 7290 says, do we believe Gaetz prematurely resigned from his House seat as an effort to keep the ethics report under wraps? Well, I don't know. Has Elise Stefanik left her role as the House of Representatives? She was in leadership over there, right? I don't believe she has resigned. I don't believe that Mike Waltz has resigned, and he's been nominated from the House of Representatives to take over a position in the Trump cabinet. So you don't have to immediately resign your position in the House of Representatives as a result of your nomination for one of these cabinet posts. Matt Gaetz chose to do so. The House of Representatives. Now, understand something. The man has been cleared of wrongdoing from the Biden Department of Justice. But just because something is legal does not mean that if it became public, your candidacy, for example, for Attorney General or really any other role in the cabinet might become untenable. And it's pretty obvious that there were aspects of this report that Matt Gaetz did not want coming out. Otherwise, tell me the reason why you would resign your position in the House.
Plus, Trump wants the win. But he also understands he doesn't need to back somebody that's going to just be a loss.
You know, Kevin asks a question on the super text line, and can he unresign?
I want to say no.
I don't know. I mean,
Or certainly it would have to be a conversation with DeSantis, wouldn't it?
Well, Mike Johnson, and I honestly don't know the answer to that. So you resign your position in the House and all that goes with that, and now you've withdrawn your candidacy from the cabinet. Can you unresign your position in the House? I don't know the answer to that. I would think no. I think that ship has probably sailed. And frankly, if you do that, then the ethics report comes out anyway. And if it was your desire not to have that report come out, then, well, I mean, because it could be legal and still embarrassing. It is 31 after the hour. I'll tell you what ought to be illegal is me being late for the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Boo! You just Bell killed a puppy. Bell killed a puppy.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. I'm seeing the wind chill is at 35 degrees right now. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Former Congressman Matt Gaetz announcing on social media today he's withdrawing from consideration to be Attorney General in the upcoming Trump administration. Gaetz' nomination had been overshadowed by a House Ethics Committee investigation into allegations of sex trafficking and drug use. ABC's Jay O'Brien reports from Capitol Hill.
I had talked to lawmakers who said they had deep skepticism about Matt Gaetz in the role as Attorney General, even if you put everything about that report to the side and only considered him based on the merits of his political career. And so that sense that we get from this Gaetz tweet is that he did not feel that he had the requisite support from senators in order to keep going.
President-elect Trump posting to Truth Social, I greatly appreciate the recent efforts of Matt Gaetz in seeking approval to be Attorney General. He was doing very well, but at the same time, he did not want to be a distraction for the administration, for which he has much respect. Matt has a wonderful future, and I look forward to watching all of the great things he will do! Exclamation point. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have some things to do as the Department of Government Efficiency, which President-elect Trump has tasked them to run. They laid out some of the details today in an op-ed with the Wall Street Journal saying they're going to appoint people inside agencies to figure out the bare minimum number of employees needed to carry out constitutional and statutorily mandated duties. And right now in Nashville, Channel 4's Jordan James runs down a list of things Mayor Freddie O'Connell's school funding plan proposes to take care of.
The mayor is looking to commit nearly $100 million toward metro schools and what's being called an investment into the future. His office says that $87 million will go towards maintenance projects throughout the district. Now, to go along with that, metro schools would use that revenue to install turf fields and solar panels at select schools, which could help cut costs long term. $10 million of that will go toward renovations at Glencliff High School. Mayor Freddie O'Connell said in a statement that the $98 million toward metro schools sets us up for a more successful future and improves the quality of life for everyone.
That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
We stay in the 40s again. Some frost on Saturday morning. Some of us could even be near freezing to start off the day. Good sunshine, 50 Saturday afternoon. Cold again Sunday morning, but back in the 60s Sunday afternoon.
I've been mentioning that Dr. Poss and the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center continues to grow, and they do. Dr. Brian McLaughlin is now on board, has been for several months now, and comes with the same exceptional credentials as Dr. Poss. And they together are serving Middle Tennessee even better than ever before with 2 locations. One is in Brentwood, the other in Murfreesboro. They are in network with BCBS, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, and Medicare, and they're a preferred provider with TRICARE for the military. Why is this important? Because it's the end of year. And with the end of year approaching, most have met their insurance deductible. Let's maximize your insurance. Do not wait to start treating your sleep apnea. Let's make the call that so many others have made and make that call today. Schedule that appointment today because they have an FDA-approved device that I wear on a nightly basis that works. This oral device supports your jaw and helps you breathe better and snore less. drposs.com, drposs.com. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you. You'll feel better. You'll sleep better. The Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center. All right, I've got a couple of answers to some questions posed by you considering the breaking news that Matt Gaetz has, quote, withdrawn his name from consideration for Attorney General of the United States of America. By the way, friends, we don't know how any of this happened. And anyone speculating that they do, I mean, maybe you have some inside info or intel. I mean, if you're inside Mar-a-Lago and you're talking to Team Trump, let me know. And I'd love to relate that information to the listening audience. But just because it is presented as Matt Gaetz, look, I've been through way too many radio firings where the individual in question, quote unquote, resigned their position. I mean, you know what I'm saying? If by resigned you mean that they were given a box and told to get their crap and get out, well then yeah, they resigned. But so you see that all the time. If Donald Trump and Team Trump, I'm not saying that this is what happened, but I'm open to it. That, I mean, Matt Gaetz is not the end-all, be-all for me, and I don't know why he would be for you. I understand that he's a disruptive force, and I appreciate that, and frankly, I would love it. By the way, I looked it up. Florida is one of 36 states that fill United States Senate vacancies by temporarily allowing the governor of said state to make the gubernatorial appointment. The appointee serves until the next statewide general election is held. The winner in that election serves out the remainder of the term. So it seems that if Marco Rubio is confirmed as Secretary of State, that Ron DeSantis will have the opportunity. Now, Ron DeSantis and Matt Gaetz, I don't know that they're friendly or whatever, but the possibility exists that he could be selected as a United States Senator, and wouldn't that chafe the hide of John Thune and others? So several of you are expressing not just frustration, but you're acting like the sky is falling. And I just want to calm you down for a moment. I mean, I understand, but like 1570, God bless you, 1570, says, okay, the Trump agenda is doomed. Maybe 1570 is being a little over the top on purpose. But he said, okay, the Trump agenda is doomed. The first supporting fact, the election of John Thune. The next supporting fact, Gaetz withdrawing. These facts point to the power that the establishment is prepared to bring to bear. And my response was, well, sure, we still live in a constitutional republic, not a monarchy. Trump is not going to get everything that he wants. There's an equal branch of government at play here. And 1570 responded by saying, right. He's only going to get what the establishment wants him to have. And I said, well, the Congress is still an equal branch of government. You don't want King Donald, do you? Absolutely not. But the primary driver here is draining the swamp, or at least major reforms to the government. Well, here's the thing. I believe in the Constitution of the United States of America. And the Constitution gives the power to the United States Senate to advise and consent. And by consent, we mean a vote of the Senate itself. And it could be just this easy. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is the case, but I'm just offering up a scenario to you that they counted the votes. And if you don't have anywhere close to 50 votes, you need virtually all of the Republicans to be with you. None of the Democrats are voting for Matt Gaetz. None of them. If Matt Gaetz were the last man standing on earth, none of the Democrats would. Well, I guess the Democrats wouldn't be here either, but you know what I'm saying. Be quiet, Bell.
I'm sorry. You're really funny sometimes.
I mean, but, you know. If Matt Gaetz were the only candidate going, he would not be picked by the Democrats. So you need all of the Republicans. And if you don't have nearly enough Republicans, well, then is that a fight worth having? Plus, so it could be coming from Matt Gaetz that he doesn't want some of this information to come out. It could be coming from Team Trump, and they get to Matt and they say, listen, this isn't happening, but we're going to talk to Ron DeSantis about a United States Senate position, or the possibility exists that he could retain his seat. I've not looked that up yet. I don't know what this quote-unquote resignation means in terms of his seat. Wasn't he just reelected? I mean, he was just reelected. They run every 2 years. So is he not the representative-elect anyway? They just had an election. Just retain your seat. And let's move it on down the road. Dave is in Hendersonville with a thought on this. Hey, Dave. Hey, Dave. Hey, Dave. Dave.
There's no Dave here, man.
Dave's not here? Hey, Dave. This is Dave. David. Dave-O. Dave, knock twice if you're in a trunk. We were just talking about the mob, and Dave might be in one of those one of those trunk situations like in Goodfellas. That poor fella started beating on the trunk halfway down the road. Then they had to go dig him up again. Dave, scream loudly if you're currently in a casket being buried. No? Okay. Well, I don't mean to be macabre, Dave. Call us back. Maybe Dave just fell asleep. Who knows? How about Seth in Franklin? Hello, Seth. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, Seth.
So I have it's more than a theory, but I'm fairly well tapped into the Republican Party of Florida, and there are a lot. It's pretty well known that Matt Gaetz wants to be the next governor of Florida, and for him to be able to run for governor without the information being released by the committee, he would have to resign. He knew he didn't stand a chance becoming a attorney general, but this way he's able to go back to Florida and say that basically the government's too big, it's weaponized against individuals like himself, and he's able to run on that. Laura Trump it's almost, in theory, according to what I'm hearing, it's pretty much locked up for her, for Governor DeSantis to appoint her. Governor DeSantis can't stand Matt Gaetz, and so that's the reasoning. In theory, that's the reason why Matt Gaetz, who had just recently won re-election, knew the report was coming out unless he resigned, and so that paves the way for him to run for governor.
If I were a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not, maybe I could suggest that if Matt Gaetz, walk with me on this one, Seth. So Matt Gaetz and Donald Trump are buds. Gaetz knows that this ethics deal is coming down. Trump nominates him for AG knowing that they will eventually withdraw the nomination. He resigns from the House as a result, thereby spiking the ethics report. Ethics report goes on ice. He gets replaced in his same House of Representatives seat in January, and we move on. And nobody ever sees the report.
In theory, just from what I'm hearing, Governor DeSantis sees this as an opportunity to replace Matt Gaetz' seat. Because they don't like each other remotely. So, from what I'm hearing in Florida, I think the only way Governor DeSantis reappoints Matt Gaetz is if President Trump, really.
I think for me, and maybe you're answering it, Seth. Are you saying that you've seen somewhere where because Gaetz withdrew, he resigned his current House seat? His current House seat ends in January. He was just elected to the 119th Congress. So I need to be convinced that his resignation of the 118th Congress carries forward to the 119th. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. So there is, in theory, I guess the governor of Florida, since Representative Gaetz resigned, the governor of Florida could fill Congressman Matt Gaetz' seat. It'd be the world's shortest term, but he could, fill the seat in theory. That's what they're debating about right now. Because basically right now, Matt Gaetz is kind of, he's not committed to anywhere. And so unless Governor DeSantis reappoints him for the 2 months, the remaining 2 months, and then he becomes congressman again, in theory. There's a lot of workarounds legally for that, but just from what I'm hearing, the governor sees this as an opportunity to get rid of Matt Gaetz. And I know the Trump people are really in favor of Laura Trump taking on Senator Rubio's seat.
Well, who knows? I think that Rubio has not resigned the position, so obviously that will need to happen once he is confirmed as Secretary of State. It wouldn't surprise me. I think Laura Trump's a very smart person. I think most people in Trump orbit, and obviously Trump's a smart guy, and his kids have gotten some of it as well. Seth, thank you for the call. There are several of you saying that since Gaetz resigned, that DeSantis has to hold a special election for which Gaetz can run for his seat again. Gaetz just ran for the seat that is to be sworn in the 100. I don't know. I trust you, 5203. I'm not saying you're not right. I just need to see it for myself. And we are picking nits, and maybe if any of you have seen this information somewhere, and maybe 5203, you're correct. 5203 says Gaetz resigned. That means he's out even for the seat he just won. He just won re-election on November 5th. Every House of Representatives member runs every 2 years, and so Gaetz won that re-election campaign. That re-election campaign was not for this Congress. It was for the next Congress. It's for the 119th. They are all going to be sworn in January. He resigned his position this time around, but that doesn't negate the results of the vote. I don't know. I don't know. Here's what I do know. I do not believe if Donald Trump was earnest in his purpose to have Matt Gaetz as his attorney general, I do not believe that he would have nominated him and withdrawn his name without gathering new information. You can either believe that the withdrawal came from Gaetz or came from Team Trump. I tend to believe that it was somewhat of a combination of the two. I do not believe for a moment that Matt Gaetz determined on his own that he wanted to withdraw his name and then just, quote, told Donald. I believe that there was a consultation that went on prior to this happening. Now, whether that consultation was initiated on the part of Gaetz or initiated on the part of Trump, who knows? Well, once again, for me, Matt Gaetz is not the end-all, be-all here. Matt Gaetz was always going to be a heavy lift because he is a polarizing personality. Not only that, he has had some issues in his past that some senators would suggest compromise him. I'm not saying I'm one of them. Matt Gaetz is not the end-all, be-all for the next presidency of Donald J. Trump for me. And like some on the super text line, I don't think this is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump's presidency. It's not even the beginning of the beginning for Donald Trump's presidency. And oh, by the way, there are plenty of quality examples of attorneys general possibilities out there that would fit right in line to Donald Trump's philosophy of government. 53 after the hour, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy for Efficient Heating and Cooling. The weather's getting cooler. We told you that this would happen. Have you gotten your maintenance done with Efficient Heating and Cooling as of yet? Jeff Eddy wants to see you. Jeff Eddy is good at what he does. What does he do? He comes out and he maintenances that unit. He keeps the price low on that. He never charges you overtime for evenings or weekend work. He doesn't believe that you should pay extra because your heater doesn't know what time it is when it decides to go out. If it does go out, you need someone that you can trust to tell you whether or not it's time to replace or whether the unit can be fixed. That's Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. They offer financing options that are available for you, and they're an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. So if it's time to replace, and I know that can be a costly exercise, they'll find you the right unit for you at the lowest price point possible. Efficient Heating and Cooling. Call today at 615-784-4424. That's 784-4424 or efficienthvac.net. Call Jeff Eddy if your heater's not ready. Tell him Matt Murphy sent you to Efficient Heating and Cooling.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Former Congressman Matt Gaetz announcing he's withdrawing from consideration to be Attorney General in the upcoming Trump administration. Gaetz' nomination had been overshadowed by a House Ethics Committee investigation into alleged sex trafficking and drug abuse. ABC's Jay O'Brien reports from Capitol Hill.
This report about what the House Ethics Committee found stays in limbo here, and we don't quite know what becomes of it, because the best chances for this report to be made public, unless the House Ethics Committee wants it to be public, were for the Senate to request it and unveil it in their confirmation process of Matt Gaetz, a confirmation process that's not going to happen anymore.
Now, a number of Republican senators, and you got to remember they were only going to get Republican senators, but they have a 53-seat majority. They can only afford to lose 4. They weren't going to get a single Democrat, and a number of Republican senators have publicly been expressing deep skepticism and concern about the Gaetz nomination. And ABC News says that privately, several were even more direct with the Trump transition team. There are questions about how widespread Venezuelan street gangs are in Tennessee. Now the head of TBI is speaking out.
The director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is clarifying his remarks made at state budget hearings, in which he said the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua is present in every major city in the state. But some local police agencies say they don't see it. Here's TBI Director David Roush speaking to Channel 4.
What I want to make sure that the public knows is that we are aware, we are watching them, we are tracking those that we know that are here. And we also want the public to be diligent, as always, and paying attention in their communities for signs of things like human trafficking.
Roush also tells Channel 4 many of the local agencies don't have the same intelligence gathering that the TBI does. They know a little more. Metro Nashville police say they have a heightened awareness of gang activity in the city. Joan Jones, WTN News.
Right now in Middle Tennessee, a proposal to bring professional baseball to Murfreesboro is out of there. Fox 17 says Mayor Shane McFarland says the city council won't approve it right now. The city's identified more than $1 billion worth of projects to improve roads, public safety, public parks, solid waste systems. Meanwhile, people behind the proposal, calling themselves Home Run History, say they respect Murfreesboro's decision and hope to get another chance again some other day. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
It is the Matt Murphy Show, hour number 2, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Pleased you've decided to join us. Thank you to Ken Weaver for the top and bottom of the hour newscast. And when news breaks, Ken is on top of it. Bell K making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. We appreciate him. I was just looking at this. Now, understand your source here. It comes from Newsweek. We're discussing the breaking news that happened about an hour and a half ago, that Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his nomination to be the next Attorney General of the United States of America. Who knows how that withdrawal occurred? It was obviously in consultation with Team Trump. Team Trump has put out a Truth Social post in which he thanked Matt Gaetz for his service to his country, for consideration, for putting his name out there, et cetera, et cetera. We're moving on. We'll find somebody else. But after Gaetz withdrew from consideration as President-elect Donald Trump's Attorney General, questions are now emerging about whether or not he can remain in Congress. So after he was announced as Trump's pick, he resigned his seat in the House of Representatives. Yet he remains the the representative-elect for Florida's 1st congressional district. So today, Gaetz withdrew his name from the Attorney General nomination process, saying that it was, quote, clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition team. He's been, and we know why that is, he's a lightning rod. He's been the center of this probe that came to nothing through the Department of Justice. There was an ethical file on him. So now the question becomes whether or not he can remain as representative-elect. So it is, according to these reports that I'm looking at here, could he return to Congress if he's not confirmed or if he withdrew? Technically, it's possible that Gaetz could end up back in the House. Legally, it is ambiguous because the right to resign isn't in the Constitution of the United States. It's conceivable the House could refuse his resignation. And at this point, that would kind of be up to him whether or not he would want them to do that. So the suggestion is that Gaetz, he resigned to block the – so people are suggesting that he perhaps resigned immediately to block any further investigation by the House Ethics Committee for any allegations against him regarding sexual dalliances or drug use. He has denied every single one of those allegations, has Matt Gaetz. He was fully vetted and investigated by the Department of Justice. The report was not published. The committee chair said that there was no agreement made to release it. He resigned, so you don't release it because he's no longer a member of the House, so he's no longer a party to a House investigation. They have parameters by which they must abide. That does not necessarily mean that if he comes back, that the investigation would not come out then. So who knows? I mean, it will all be determined as to whether or not Matt Gaetz wants to be back in the House of Representatives or if he has his designs on something else. I'm going to introduce our next guest to the program in just a moment, but Mike has been holding for some time. Mike, thank you for your patience. What do you think about this Gaetz resignation?
Yeah, okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mike. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, it's obvious to me, you seem to be trying to not avoid the answer. It's obvious that the guy has got something to hide. He resigned immediately because he didn't want the results to come out. He resigned today. Why else would he resign? I don't want to hear this about he doesn't distraction. There's nothing about a distraction. The guy has something to hide. If you don't, like my grandfather told me, if you don't have nothing to hide, you don't mind somebody investigating you and putting the information out. It's obvious that he had some kind of relationship with the girl.
Mike,
let's be honest about this situation.
Yeah, let's talk.
Why else would he? Why else would he resign?
Let's talk. Okay, so, hey, Mike, what is your last name and where do you live, please?
Well, why do you need my last name?
Well, do you have anything to hide?
What? I'm just on your radio program.
No, Mike, I'm sorry. If you don't have anything to hide, why don't you tell me your last name and your address? What are you hiding, Mike? Oh, Mike hung up. You see, Mike, how that can get turned around on you? I mean, I thought you didn't have anything to hide. If you don't have anything to hide, what's your last name and what's your home address? Now, obviously, Mike, I don't mind that you didn't tell me your last name and your home address. I did not expect you to tell me that. I was just trying to make a point. sometimes you don't want these intrusions into your private life, even if you do not have anything to hide. By the way, and I'm not here to defend Matt Gaetz. I stated last hour that I really didn't have any love lost for Matt Gaetz. He's not my cup of tea. However, I can fully understand why Matt Gaetz might not want perfectly legal things that he perhaps engaged in coming out in public. And that seems to me to be a possibility here. Mike, call back anytime, and I will not ask you your last name or your home address the next time that you do. I will ask this next guest of ours his last name for him to check in because Bell K indicates to me that at some point we banned you from the show. I don't know. Representative Scott Sapicki joins us again in studio.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hey, Scott.
Oh, how you doing? I'm so sorry. I completely screwed up his walk-up music.
What are you doing? Come on, Bell.
Former sound player for the Sounds had his own walk-up music, and that's kind of our theme. When he comes in, we play this.
Glory to Georgia and to heck with Tennessee. Hey, Scott. I have nothing to do with that.
I'm thinking of a new bill.
What?
About radio show hosts.
Where do I not get to take
their
my
engineers?
Where do I not get to take my Cobra now?
Something about taxation, maybe.
Just ones from born in Georgia, living in Alabama for so long.
With pet cobras too.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. All right. Well, we'll see that.
Throw the book at them.
We'll see that. How's it going?
Fantastic.
Okay. So I thought of you. I saw a media report last night, and normally I'm on top of these things as we communicate as the session draws near. But I was excited. I was like, hey, I know that guy. It was a television report indicating that you are planning to file some sort of legislation regarding cell phone use in public schools.
That is correct.
And I love the idea. Talk to me about it.
So, and it's me among others. There's probably about 2 or 3 other bills that'll be filed also about it. One of the things that we've gotten complaints from teachers and administrators since I've been up there in the General Assembly for the last 6 years is the distraction that these cell phones are causing during instructional time to the teachers. The discipline problems, the cyberbullying, just the overall of kids not paying attention in the classroom. And so we started to do some deep dive on research and took a survey, and 73% of our teachers in Tennessee believe that cell phones are a major distraction during instructional time. And that's something that really kind of shocked me at first. But then I have two boys, and they do go to a private school, and they have a policy at a private school that in instructional time, when you walk into the classroom, they have these little pouches that sit on the back of doors that the kids have to put their cell phones in and put them on silent.
I mean, we have the technology. I mean, not to get in front of the story, but like I've been to like Zanies, Comedy Club Zanies, and many comedians don't want people recording their sets and doing these types of things. And so they have those little pouches in Zany. You get to keep your phone. You get to keep it on your person, but it goes into a pouch and it doesn't work. And the pouch kind of locks, and then they unlock at the end of the show. This is the kind of thing you're talking about?
No, not at all. It goes on the back of the classroom door, and it might have like 25 little plastic pouches in it. Kids walk in, they put their cell phone in there, and they go sit down at their desk.
All right.
Now, the bill allows for the teachers that if there's some reason why they want them to have their device, they can tell the kids to get up and go get your device and, log into X, Y, or Z. It also allows for children with who are special needs or have IEPs, individual education plans, that if the cell phone usage is part of that, they're allowed to use it because it's part of the educational plan. But what the bill does, Matt, is it requires every district, all 147 of our school districts, to come up with a usage plan in regards to the legislation stating that during instructional time, the students cannot have access or use of their cell phones unless a teacher wants them to do it.
How is this controversial?
Well, there was a little controversy last year. And the controversy...
Did this get presented last year?
It did.
Okay.
And it didn't fail, but it didn't pass, okay? It tied 8-8. Believe it or not. And that means Republicans voted against it.
I was about to come after you. It didn't fail, but it didn't pass. That sounds so political. But then you tell me, well, it was a tie.
It was a tie.
Okay,
so
sure.
It didn't fail, it didn't pass, so it tied. And so one of the reasons was because of if we had an issue like we had at Covenant. And one of the proposals had that they weren't allowed to bring them with them into the classroom. They had to separate from them. And that created a little angst with parents about, and it has an address for that in the bill, that if there is an emergency that the children be able to access their phones to be able to, contact. But it's a very simple bill. It's made to get more control of the classroom for our teachers without having to argue with these kids about their cell phones. And you saw the one teacher that got beat up when they removed a cell phone from a kid. And
I mean, kids are sadly addicted to these things.
And
we've got to break that cycle of addiction.
I can give you all
too.
kinds of data about the psychological addictions, the mental issues with it, the lack of classroom. But here's what I can tell you is states that have already done this, and you know what one of the states have already done this?
Who's that?
California.
What?
California has already done this.
Huh.
And New York, by the way.
I thought they got everything wrong.
Well,
I guess not everything.
This one, they got this one right.
I know Alabama. I think Alabama's proposing it this session.
Most people in Alabama can't use their cell phone anyway. I don't know how to do it. Like Georgia.
Easy pickings.
Like Georgia.
Easy pickings. That state went to hell since I left. So, well, no, it's good. So what about, and I'm just asking questions that are being posed on the super text line, what about teachers and their phones?
Well,
does this apply to teachers as well?
Well, teachers already have a code of conduct they have to adhere by. And in their code of conduct, when they're being paid to instruct, they're being paid to instruct. That'd be an issue that the principal would take up saying, hey, Miss Jones or Mr. Jones.
Do you feel like there's already authority
There's already authority in place right there. And most of the teachers I've spoken to are 100% behind this because they don't want to get into these back and forth with these kids about their cell phones. If everybody has to do it, it just creates uniformity in the classroom.
Kevin says we don't need more state bills. How do you respond to that?
Well,
I don't know specifically what he means, but
that'd be a question to get more specific on that.
We need school boards to enforce the current standards, he says.
Well, the current standards are it's all optional. There is no mandatory that you have to come up with a policy.
So this would be a statewide law that would require that students secure their cell phones not away from their persons.
In the classroom.
But in the classroom during instructional time.
Yeah, and the locals get to decide how they're going to do that.
Look, I think it does two things. One, I think it forces focus on the subject matter.
Sure.
Number two, I think it, creates a much-needed moment or, minutes, hours, if you will, of breakaway time from the phones to break away from that psychological addiction that is clearly present. And if you don't believe me, that video that Scott just referenced, it's bad to watch because the student goes absolutely bonkers on the teacher and starts beating the teacher up. But I mean, obviously there's discipline problems, there's problems with authority figures, but there's also clearly that individual lost their minds because I think of an addiction problem that they have.
Well, one of the skills that we've lost in society is the ability to listen and speak back and forth to each other. Because with the advent of the cell phone, people are just staring at their phones all the time. I get on certain people in my own family that they're answering questions by text all the time. Mm-hmm. And it might be a back and forth for 20 minutes. Like, just pick up the phone and talk to them.
Right.
Just talk to people, right? And one of the things that teachers...
we don't use our phones for talking anymore, Scott. Come on.
Well,
sound like an old timer.
You're getting close to that bill every day.
Yeah.
But one of the complaints that we've got from teachers is the lack of interaction between the students when they're talking about a topic, such as, hey, what's the process if a congressman resigns before he's sworn in? Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts on that, right? And let the kids go back and forth like we used to in the classroom, and then you state an opinion, now you got to defend it. Instead of looking at your phone, texting back and forth, it engages us. And I think what we're going to see academically, we're going to see a boost in academics.
Tim writes in and says, it's odd, but California is probably leading the way on this because Silicon Valley executives have publicly stated how they understand too much screen time can negatively affect children.
Absolutely, 100%. That's the other bill we're working on right now is a recess bill. More recess for our kids. I can show you mental health reasons. I can show you socialization issues out on the playground, and I can show you the academic results of kids that spend more time outside playing and then coming back inside and learning that's going to yield big results for us, too. That'll be a bill that's coming, too. Scott
Sapicki is with us talking education this hour on the Matt Murphy Show. In a moment, we'll talk to him about the upcoming legislative session and will we expect to see a school choice bill debated on the floor of the General Assembly. That's next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello, friends. It's Matt Murphy, and I want to spend a moment talking to you about the Glock Store and saying thank you to the Glock Store. What an incredible election night it was, in part thanks to the Glock Store. They were one of our big sponsors and raffled off a Trump Glock 19 that was just incredible. You can get one of those Trump Glock 19s, by the way, if you stop by the Glock Store and say, hey, I want one of those Trump Glock 19s that Matt Murphy was talking about on the radio. They will set you up. Because why? Because they're customized right there in-house at the Glock Store. When you call yourself the Glock Store, Lenny McGill said, well, we have to have more Glocks in stock than anyone else on the planet. And they do on a day-to-day basis. Also, you might not know this because they have a beautiful retail showroom and they have their Shoot 270 rooms. And, I mean, you see when you go by the retail side of things, they're also a nationwide online retailer. You can find out more at glockstore.com. But for all of these reasons and for their presence here in Nashville and for the fact that they employ somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 Nashvillians in their store on a day-to-day basis, we say thank you this month of Thanksgiving. Thank you to the Glock Store, and thank you to all of you that have supported the Glock Store as they support us. It's kind of a three-legged stool in that regard. The Glock Store at glockstore.com or just off Airlane Drive and Elm Hill Pike. Go by and see them and tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Glock Store.
Matt Gaetz drops out and a recall in the Walmart bakery. These stories and more coming up at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy. 25 after the hour. Ken Weaver coming up in mere moments with those headlines that he just described to you and much, much more. Your telephone call is on the way as well. And Representative Scott Sapickian with us. I saw Scott's name on my television last night, and I hadn't talked to him in a while and said we need to get him in because it occurs to me that, boy, oh boy, before you know it, the legislative session is here. I mean, we're talking, what, 40?
Month and a half?
Yeah, 40 some odd days. And the big topic of discussion is obviously school choice.
Really?
I believe it or not.
Wow.
Sapicki, believe it or not, people are talking about it.
Wow, okay.
This is coming back up, I suspect.
Oh, yes.
Tell me how that happens. Tell me,
Well, the governor gets a hold of some language, and then he gives it to William Lamberth, and William Lamberth. It's called House Bill 1. I told you this, didn't I? I told you it's going to be House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1.
That's why I like you so picky, because they would call you a wise guy.
I'm a little bit like you.
You're a little bit of a wise guy.
Wise.
Not
Wiseacre.
like Bell, though, who's going to have an issue with the taxes we're going to impose on him for those snide remarks about Georgia.
Yeah, see,
Never mess with the man who has the buttons.
See, this is an interesting lane that Bell knows he can play in, because he knows he's not getting any complaints from his host anytime he hears that, but he gets lots of complaints from the guests. So, House Bill 1.
House Bill 1, yes, sir.
Is there any other legislation that you can think of that's going to take the oxygen that the school choice bill will take? I mean,
Possibly.
I mean, are we talking about those today, or are we waiting to talk about those later?
We're waiting. We're waiting to talk about those.
Oh, you got something in your pocket, Sapicki?
I don't know.
Well, what could possibly be bigger than now? All I want to talk about is the thing I don't know about.
Well, that's called
I have to wait?
planting a seed.
Yeah, well, we'll wait. Let's talk school choice. All right, so what happened last year? I mean, was it basically a difference of opinion between the House and the Senate that bogged it down?
Well, yes, I think the things that we were wanting to do with school choice in the House, I think the Senate was pretty much fine with. Senator Lundberg, who's the chairman of Senate Education, wanted to add in the public-to-public transfer also, and we were working through that too. There was some consternation about some of the things that we wanted to do with reducing the amount of testing and reducing some evaluations on teachers to give a little bit more freedom and autonomy. And I think that's where it all broke down right there. We just couldn't come to a clear consensus on how we were going to get there. And remember, we were talking about this, it was right at the end. And so when you're talking about this major policy shift or policy proposal, you don't want to do something hastily. And I think cooler heads prevailed and said, you know what, let's just tamp this down right now. And let's think through this over the summer, and let's work on a bill that both sides can agree on going into it, so we don't have three bills running through the General Assembly to Senate.
As we sit here on this November 21st, do you have that bill that both sides are agreeing on?
Well, I mean, evidently House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1 are, because it's the same language.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that there's been some discussion between House leadership, Senate leadership, and the governor's office about the construction of this bill.
For those who are unfamiliar with our many, many discussions, and I don't want to get in front of the newbies in the listening audience, explain in 60 seconds or so exactly what we're talking about when we say school choice in Tennessee.
So what school choice does is it puts the control of the child's education back into parents' hands firmly, that they're able to choose where they believe is the best place for their child to go to school to get the education that they want them to get. We're going to create a scholarship program outside of the normal TISA, T-I-S-A, Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement. That's our funding for our public schools. So in this new bill, the public schools, we're going to set a floor on them that they will never receive any money less than what they're receiving right now. And therefore, we're going to have a scholarship program outside of that. The governor's already allocated with the General Assembly $140 million, that I believe it's $7,000 or $7,500, that if a child wants to go from a public school to a private school, that we will give them a scholarship to help pay their way over there and get a better education. And we will track that through just the tests they take being reported back to the comptroller's office. So as we invest as Tennesseans for education of these kids, we can see they're making academic progress. And the ESA, the voucher program we have, we're starting to see some good results from that coming from these kids.
So I'll hold this next question until after the bottom of the hour break. No, or after you leave, and then I'll start yelling about you. But, I mean, there are concerns on – it's not just specifically Republicans or conservatives are on one side of this and liberals and Democrats. I mean, there's a lot of different conversation going on. I think there's a little bit of a split between the more urban areas and the more rural areas in the state of Tennessee. I want to talk about some of those aspects of this, and I'm curious your thoughts on how functionally this happens, because I've been around the block a time or two on controversial pieces of legislation. Is there a danger? I'll ask you this question in a minute. Is there a danger of throwing this out as House or Senate Bill number 1, recognizing you've got other things to do in the House and the Senate? Is there a possibility of it bogging down the General Assembly? We'll talk about that next. It is Ken Weaver's turn with the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
1:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast in 5 minutes. Former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, President-elect Trump's pick for Attorney General, has announced he's withdrawing his name for consideration. Here's Jonathan Karl.
Gaetz was facing a very steep uphill climb. A number of Republican senators, and remember, they were only going to get Republican senators, but they have a 53-seat majority. They could only afford to lose 4. They weren't going to get a single Democrat. And a number of Republican senators had publicly been expressing deep skepticism and concern about the Gaetz nomination. I am told that privately, several of them were even more direct with the Trump transition team.
Gaetz was facing scrutiny over allegations of sexual misconduct and illicit drug use. President-elect Trump's nominee to be Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, met with Senate Republicans on Capitol Hill this morning ahead of any confirmation process. The former congressman has faced allegations from a woman who says Hegseth sexually assaulted her in 2017. Hegseth told police at the time the encounter was consensual. He was asked about that incident today on Capitol Hill.
The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared, and that's where I'm going to leave it.
2 products from Walmart's bakery being recalled as we hear from Alex Stone.
Walmart's Great Value brand, cinnamon rolls and cheese Danish are being recalled because they could have plastic in them. They were distributed to Walmart stores nationwide. Over 40,000 packages of them went out. The FDA is classifying it as a Class 2 recall, which means the product may cause medically reversible adverse health consequences. If you have them at home, toss them or bring them back to Walmart.
And as millions of Americans begin their holiday shopping, the Better Business Bureau out with a scam alert saying they often use fake ads on social media, sometimes offering deep discounts on popular or hard-to-find items. The BBB advises you to look for red flags like items offered at a deep discount, a popular item sold by an unknown retailer, and being asked to pay through a payment app instead of a credit card. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, friends, Matt Murphy for Craft Body Scan. Craft Body Scan wants you to know that the holiday tradition of Craft Body Scan is, well, here's the deal. Holiday traditions are special. They're special because they give us a chance to pause and reflect. The holidays are special for that reason. And at Craft Body Scan, they want to start a new tradition that's all about health, safety, and peace of mind. Right now, they're offering a buy one, gift one special for couples on their full body scans through December 31st. Now, these full body scans are generally about a little over $2,400. Well, you get a full body scan with this offer, and you get an additional one for your loved one for nothing, completely free. Think about this. One quick, non-invasive scan, you will have a complete picture of your health. We're talking about your intestines, your insides, your lungs, your heart, all parts of your stomach, and every area on your body will be scanned through the CT scan technology, and you'll know even before you feel it what is going on with your health. It's the best way to take charge of your health. So, craftbodyscan.com? Yes, craftbodyscan.com. Spell it with a C. Or 615-436-1000, 436-1000 to book your scan today. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy, along with Representative Scott Sapicki. Scott and I were just talking about the election cycle, and I was showing him a cartoon that I feel like we were discussing what's going on Capitol Hill with regard to Representative Nancy Mace presenting a piece of legislation. And obviously, Mike Johnson is right there. As Speaker of the House, he controls the Capitol, and he says no. I mean, women's only spaces are going to continue to be women's only spaces. Mm-hmm. And Spiggy and I were talking about that and whether or not that is going to translate to the Tennessee General Assembly.
Yeah.
And I would expect that it will.
We've already passed those bills.
Well, there you go.
They should have listened to us first.
But is this not – I showed Scott a cartoon, and I'll try to describe it. It's a little trolley car, and the trolley car says people with gender dysphoria. And the trolley car is on the way to a place that says reasonable accommodations. And then these trans activists are clicking the switch and moving them over, and they move over to biological reality, women's rights, child safety, LGBTQ rights, and common sense. And all of those people are going to get run over by the trolley car. And sadly, that's what it is that right. most rational, reasonable human beings understand that there is a very, 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 very small subsection of our population in America that might need some sort of special accommodation. Well, as long as everybody is on the same page there, we're going to be human beings about it. We're going to be kind as we possibly can about it. Yeah. That's not what these trans activists want.
No, the accommodation is gender-neutral bathrooms. We see it all the time, right?
Right.
That, either sex can use that, but there's only two. It's male or female.
Right.
And we have bathrooms that are male. We have bathrooms that are female. And then some places have gender-neutral. And you just go into the bathroom. If you want to go into the middle one for some reason, go ahead. I don't care.
Right.
But I should not see a woman in the male bathroom, and definitely there should be no males in the female bathrooms, especially when you're talking high school or middle school with these young girls. Absolutely not. And so we've already taken care of this in Tennessee, Matt. This is a done deal, and no, we're not playing this game anymore.
Do we not? Am I not correct that there is a representative that identifies as transgender?
I don't know.
I know there's an activist. Maybe this person was running for office, and I'm thinking
we had one that was invited by
that's
Representative
that's what I'm thinking.
Representative Bain to come and give the prayer, quote unquote, on the House floor.
Right. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And obviously attempting to get a reaction out of you guys, and kudos to you guys for doing what you did, which is either taking care of your business and not being there during the thing, or just politely allowing the prayer. Moving on for the next thing, as we do. So a number of questions about the cell phone legislation to include, hey, slip your headphones on there for just a second.
They don't work.
They don't work?
I tried.
Did you turn your knob?
I turned the knob.
Okay.
I do have a degree.
Well,
that was for you and Bell.
You got your BS?
You have that.
I'll tell you what, Ryan, I'll ask your question of Scott Sapicki. What's on your mind, Ryan, on cell phones? Well, this isn't going to work out anyway. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Ryan.
This is Ron.
Oh, Ron.
Yeah.
Well, my apologies, Ron. What's up?
Just loving your show. Scott, I fully support you. I live in a small town down here in southern Middle Tennessee, and everything you're doing is spot on down here. As far as questions, I really don't have one, but I just wanted you to know I fully support you, what y'all doing there.
Well, I mean, at least thank you, Ryan, for the call, and I mean, you're not cousins with Ryan, are you?
No, I'm not.
Ryan just wanted to call and say thank you for everything you're doing. Isn't that sweet?
I really appreciate that. Sometimes we get people yelling at us all the time, and once in a while, it's nice to have someone say "good job."
So I want to revert
More
back
fun
to
to yell at
yeah, it's true. I want to revert back to the question I asked before the break. So
on what bill?
I mean, school choice. House Bill 1, Senate Bill 1.
I've heard of it.
So if these are going to be the first bills filed, and clearly they have been,
yes, sir.
Are they going to be taken up early, late? What? I understand how a bill that might draw a certain amount of controversy from certain groups might take up a lot of oxygen in that General Assembly space.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that smarter people than me are already thinking about how to navigate that.
Well, one of the things you have to figure out is, do you have enough votes to pass it? That's always the first thing in legislation. We were able to get it through 3 committees last year, which was almost half the House had already voted on that before it got to finance, and then it slowed down with the disagreements in the Senate. I'm sure, because I've been asked multiple times in my office already by different groups about my thoughts on the bill from the governor, and I think it's got a very good starting place to it. There's a couple of tweaks that we may need to do for some clarifying language. Inadvertently, there was a certain category of our private schools that was written out of the bill by mistake. I think we got to get that fixed. And some clarity on who can qualify for this. One of the things that my members in the General Assembly made perfectly clear to me, that they wanted this as a benefit to only be available to U.S. citizens. And, you know, the issues we have right now in Tennessee with the people that are here illegally from courtesy of the Biden administration, it's costing us about $800 million a year in our public schools to educate these kids, which we should be sending a bill, hopefully, by the time we get back into session to the federal government for their portion of that, which is $800 million, creating this problem in our public schools.
When you talk
Was
about
I dancing enough there for you?
No. I mean, I get it. And when you talk about school choice from 100,000 feet, generally speaking, people can agree that parents ought to have as much maximum amount of control over the education of their kids.
Yes.
It gets tricky when we get down to the nuts and bolts of it. And I'll give you an example. I preface this example by saying that, 8695 says, have Scott promise that not one penny will go to athletes already enrolled in private school on scholarship. Now, I don't know how much that's happening.
I don't know how. I don't even understand that question.
So the concept is that private schools who want to do better in athletics, football, they find individuals that can't afford the private school tuition and they get them in on scholarship. And his suggestion is if that's what the private schools want to do for athletics, that's all well and good.
Well, I would think that the private schools are going to have to educate that student also, because we have reporting mechanisms from that school that we're going to track. And I'm not speaking for myself here. If I would find out that we have a private school that's bringing these kids in and not educating them and taking advantage of their athletic ability, I'm sure the General Assembly would probably have some problem with that.
No, I mean, I don't think that's the suggestion. I think the suggestion is that if it's good enough for the private school to cover it with scholarship now, we don't want to transfer that private scholarship to taxpayer dollars. I think is.
I mean, that's
fair.
That's a debate we can have on whether or not that's fair or not. You'd be discriminating against a kid that doesn't play athletics versus one that does. If they give academic scholarships all the time at these universities, colleges, high schools.
You and I talked last year when this legislation was before the General Assembly about some of the concerns from people who would consider themselves conservatives or Republicans, concerns from homeschool parents primarily, but also concerns that this would further entangle government into private education. How do you respond to those concerns?
So if you look at page 10 of the bill, there's 11 pages. If you look at page 10 of the bill, House Bill 1, it talks about how this bill does not give the state of Tennessee any purview into the academics, the curriculum, the testing, the day-to-day operations, the religious component. It does not give us any of that authority at all. It's specifically
spelled out in the bill.
Spelled out in the bill. It maintains the autonomy of the private schools in regards to how they're going to do academics in a day-to-day basis. Most of our private schools, we know, are religious schools. That is freedom and autonomy they have there. All we're saying is that if a student is going to come from a public school to a private school, whatever nationally normed test that they already give to the rest of their students that is approved by the State Board of Education and recognized as by their accrediting agency that is in line with the standards that we're teaching, that all we want to know is how the kid did on the test.
So is it fair to say, I mean, there are already relationship strings that tie the state to private education? Not a lot, but
it's usually special ed kids.
But also like testing standards, and I mean,
yeah, I mean we have
there's a relationship.
Yeah, and the way you know that they're progressing properly is when you look at the average ACT scores of these private schools.
Sure. So what I hear you saying is that you don't believe that this bill will add any of those strings that don't already exist.
No, the on the governor's staff and with leadership, they listened to that last year that we were having some discussions on in the House about how to make sure there's no entanglements. They also put the language in there. Remember, I talked about last year how we received letters from the Homeschool Association that they wanted no part of this because they wanted to make sure that there was no way for any strings to get into homeschool. That's in the bill to protect homeschoolers. So it's a pretty well-written bill. A couple tweaks need to happen here and there. There's money for districts that are in economically disadvantaged counties, and also those counties that have disasters for their infrastructure for their schools. There's also bonuses of $2,000 for every teacher in the state of Tennessee. That's probably going to take a little bit of a tweak that will send that money down to the districts and let them decide who they're going to give the bonuses to based off their performance.
Do you believe that there will be an opportunity? You kind of answered this question a minute ago, but last question on this. When's the session coming?
14th.
On January 14th. Do you believe that there is an effort on the, and I'm not asking you for any specifics, but I'm saying, do you think that this will be dealt with throughout the entirety of the session, or do you think that there is an effort right now to say, listen, we need to deal with school choice, we need to get it through, we need to get some votes on it, we need to see where membership's on it, we need to get it voted on so that we can move on? So if it hangs over the entire session, I'm concerned that it's going to sully other things that could go on.
And this is my thoughts only. My thoughts only are this is such a big bill. This is going to have consternation on both sides and support on both sides, that it makes sense to me that instead of sucking everything else in the General Assembly into this one issue, let's just take this issue separate. Therefore, all we're debating is exactly what people want us to debate on, and then we go ahead and we vote.
Completely unrelated question.
Go ahead.
Can you call a special session during a regular session?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you answered that, didn't you? Thank you, Scott.
That'd be my thoughts.
By the way, when's that biggin going over to visit the University of Georgia? When's your football player going over there to see UGA? Anytime soon?
I'm a state representative from Tennessee, and we like education. We prefer education being done at a higher level than going to Georgia or Alabama.
Why are you smacking? I mean, I don't. Young man, I've met that young man of yours.
Here's what's really funny.
He would look great.
Here's what's really funny.
He'd look great in red.
Is every time Bell plays that, it reminds me of there's no words to that said because down in Georgia they can't sing and do words at the same time.
Glory, glory to old Georgia.
I've heard different words than that.
Glory, glory to old Georgia. Glory, glory to old Georgia, and to hell with Georgia Tech. Those are the official words.
You just keep hanging. You keep hanging your head on that one.
We change them up depending on who we might be playing.
By the way, think about this real quick. You got Tennessee competing for the playoffs, right?
You do.
Vanderbilt is bowl eligible.
Like it.
And Memphis is going for a 10-2 football season.
I'm telling you.
There's some good football being played in Tennessee.
The state of Tennessee swept Bama.
I'm telling you.
Kind of like that, too.
They were supposed to play Memphis, and Bama said, we want to go for 3.
We've already over 2.
Don't want to go for 3.
Well, you and I agree on that. Thank you, Scott.
My pleasure, y'all.
There's Representative Scott Zepicki, 51 after the hour. Super Talk. I saw you, but I...
Matt Gaetz drops out. You'll hear from Pete Hegseth, President-elect Trump's pick for defense secretary. And when you hear what the Illinois Supreme Court did today with former Empire TV star Jussie Smollett. That's coming up at 2 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I feel like after that newscast with Ken Weaver coming up in just a couple of minutes, I might surprise a few people with my position on what the Illinois Supreme Court just did. I don't want to get in front of Ken's newscast, but once we hear about it, we'll talk about it on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll also talk in the next hour about Pete Hegseth. Now, one of the reasons that I'm not frustrated, but a little surprised that Matt Gaetz withdrew his nomination as quickly as he did. It's not a surprise to me that he withdrew the nomination, considering some of the reports about what would come out in the ethics complaint. And you know, frankly, that will come out, whether officially or unofficially, in drips and drabs. But I am surprised that it happened this quickly. Not surprised that you couldn't get the votes. Not surprised that it's withdrawn. And I'm not saying that's good or that's bad. It just is unsurprising. On the issue of Pete Hegseth, it is feeling more and more and more to me like this is a Brett Kavanaugh situation all over again. Every person, I've had the opportunity to meet Pete. I know that our own Brian Wilson on The Drive has spoken to him on almost a weekly basis for I don't know how long now. He lives in our community outside of Goodlettsville. I've had an opportunity to meet him on a couple of occasions. The latest of which was during our vice presidential watch party when Fox Nation chose to be a part of it. And Pete and I had a nice conversation on air and off. Everyone that I have known that knows him likes him. And it would be a shock to me if any of these allegations or these singular allegations against him are true. And secondarily, what they are trying to do is to destroy a man based on the quote-unquote seriousness of the allegation, not the veracity of the allegation, which has already been fully vetted by the Monterey Police Department. We'll talk about that as well as we continue into hour number 3 on the Matt Murphy Show. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time for news.
2 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast in 5 minutes. Former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, President-elect Trump's pick for Attorney General, has announced he's withdrawing his name for consideration. Gaetz was facing scrutiny over allegations of sexual misconduct, illicit drug use. Here's ABC's Selena Wang.
You have this stunning reversal, and we're learning from sources now that during some transition meetings yesterday that Donald Trump privately acknowledged that it seemed like there was not going to be a path forward for Matt Gaetz. Several Senate Republicans have said before that they were not going to support Matt Gaetz, that they weren't certain that he was going to get their support. So it became clear that Matt Gaetz, if he went through the Senate confirmation process, just wasn't going to get the necessary votes needed.
President-elect Trump's nominee to be Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth met with Senate Republicans on Capitol Hill this morning ahead of any confirmation process. The former congressman thanking Donald Trump for nominating him to be Secretary of Defense and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance for joining him in meetings with Senate members.
Take very seriously the advice and consent role that the U.S. Senate has. We look forward to engaging in that process. We take absolutely nothing for granted, and we welcome the opportunity to talk to any senator that wants to talk to us.
The Illinois Supreme Court today overturned the conviction for former Empire TV star Jussie Smollett for lying about a hate crime. Smollett paid a $10,000 bond, performed community service in a deal with prosecutors after he lied about being the victim of a 2019 racist and homophobic attack in Chicago. But a special prosecutor appointed the next year charged Smollett all over again, and he was convicted of faking the attack in 2021. ABC senior investigative correspondent Darren Katursky reports Smollett's attorneys appealed that conviction, arguing he had been punished for the crime Same crime twice.
It's a unanimous opinion with 2 of the judges abstaining from it. And the justices said they know that the resolution of the case was unsatisfying before, but they say, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
Here in Nashville, Mayor Freddie O'Connell applauds the new agreement between the Metro Nashville Police Department and the Community Review Board that will take complaints of alleged police misconduct. The memorandum of understanding calls for quarterly meetings between Chief Drake and the board's director. Police providing the CRB access to documents and video, including body cam and dash cam videos, and for the CRB to review Metro Nashville Police Department investigations related to officer misconduct. The CRB will also be able to request to be notified of critical incidents. There are also deadlines for ending reviews in a timely manner. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Nobody wants to live in pain, and if you are living in pain, then I don't need to tell you that it's debilitating, that it can impact every facet and every aspect of your life. What if I did tell you that there's someone listening, there's someone ready to help? That person, the Dr. Gill himself and the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Dr. Wendy, Dr. Dominic, Dr. V, they are a team of chiropractic care physicians that truly do have your best interest in mind. And if you're in pain with your back, your neck, your knees, your hips, your elbows, wherever it might hurt, they take the time to listen, to understand, and create personalized solutions just for you. What if your pain was gone? I know you've probably thought of that 100 times if you are in pain on a day-to-day basis. Well, call the Dr. Gill Center and schedule an appointment today. I believe that they can alleviate that pain. You don't have to settle for a clinic that doesn't put you first. Call 615-882-4838, 882-4838, and schedule that appointment today. Or visit callmepainfree.com. Callmepainfree.com. Let's work together to make your pain-free life a reality with the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I think I just deleted all of my emails in my email inbox, which is causing me great anxiety. You know what I'm saying? If you have some that you needed,
they're all in your deleted folder, so they're still there.
Now look at what Bell's here for, to calm me down and to make sure that the rest of the show runs as smoothly as humanly possible, by making sure that I understand that. It's all right there.
No problems.
There's no deletions anymore,
there is,
right?
No, at all.
Everything's recorded. There's no deletions, and everything you do is on tape somewhere.
Yep, and the cops are on their way.
And the police will be here any second. 7 minutes after the hour, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, 615-737-9986. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you are most certainly invited. So, as you heard Ken Weaver mention, the Illinois Supreme Court has overturned actor Jussie Smollett's conviction for staging a fake hate crime against himself in Chicago, Illinois. The Illinois Supreme Court said earlier today that it was overturning said conviction of disgraced actor Jussie Smollett, who will no doubt at some point today claim that he's been vindicated, which is as bogus as this crime he purportedly committed against himself. He was found guilty of staging a hoax fake hate crime against himself and falsely reporting it to police. I mean, we remember this, right? When did this happen? I don't think was I here? Bell, did we talk about this together? When did this happen?
I'm pretty sure it was before you.
I think it was too. Oh, yeah, it was. Here, just read on down on the story there, Murph. January of 2019. So for those who have forgotten about this was, Trump becomes president of the United States, and sadly, a lot of people of color had been convinced that, there was going to be slavery again. I mean, all of these nonsensical claims of Donald Trump's a king, he's a dictator, and he's going to do all of these things, and he hates you, and he hates this person. I mean, it was just all nonsense.
Well, the part about Chicago being MAGA country, that was true.
Oh, no, I'm getting to that. That's fun. That was fun. This is MAGA.
This is MAGA country. Here's some bleach and some.
Moron said that two guys ran up to him with Make America Great Again hats on.
Yep.
And they yelled at him.
But remember, it's 3 a.m.
And he was coming out of the subway,
right? Yeah, coming out of subway 3 a.m. in Chicago during the winter.
Right. It was like 3 degrees outside. And so Jussie Smollett's story was that he was hungry and he went to pick up a Subway sandwich in the middle of the night in Chicago, Illinois. And that apparently according to him, two white individuals were tracking him or waiting for him on a night that was like 3 degrees wind chill while he picked up his Subway sandwich. And then they attacked him and screamed at him that this is MAGA country, which was the most, as Bell pointed out, ridiculous part of the story. Like, even if I am a MAGA guy in Chicago, I'm not stupid. Chicago's not MAGA country. It's never been MAGA country. Illinois would be MAGA country were there no Chicago. That is true. And so he tells police that they wrapped a rope around his neck and threw bleach on him and screamed homophobic slurs because apparently he's a big enough star that everybody knew who he was. Everybody knew he was gay and obviously black.
Can I throw one little aside in here?
Mm-hmm.
My entire takeaway from this story from 2019 forward has been, why doesn't Nashville have any 24-hour subways?
That's true. We don't?
We don't. Where is my 24-hour subway? This is MAGA country. We could have a 24-hour subway here.
I'm all for it. I haven't had Subway in I don't know when. I worked at Subway briefly in college. And I got a little sick of it because I was shift manager at night, and my manager was kind of loosey-goosey with inventory. And so invariably back at the apartment at West Georgia College in Carrollton, Georgia, there would be, quite a few cold-cut combos in the old fridge. You can only have so many of those things. But I remember, what was your go-to at Subway? How long since you've been at Subway?
A year or so.
I mean, I haven't been in forever.
But
I used to love it.
To me, it's all about the meatball sub. Meatball subs.
Loved the meatball sub. I'm down with that. If I was having a hot sub, meatball's my go-to. I like the meatball more than the steak and cheese.
If I want a cold one, I'm going to get tuna fish.
Okay, so I'm down with the tuna fish, but here's what they don't serve anymore. Seafood sensation. They used to call it seafood and crab, and then the crab people sued them and made them stop because there's
real
not
crab.
No limitation. Yeah, we know. But I would put just a layer of cheese and then just a light layer of mayo and then the seafood and crab and then put pickles and onions and black olives and salt and pepper, a little bit of lettuce on top of that thing. Oh, my
See,
goodness
that right
gracious.
there, that's a MAGA country sandwich.
That is a MAGA country meal from Subway. Now, I don't know that I believe you that no Subways are open all night. Hey, Ken, while you've been gone, we're talking about Subway. What's your favorite Subway sandwich, Weaver?
You know what?
Not that one.
I don't
Have you
really
not-
eat at Subway.
I haven't eaten at Subway in, I don't know, 5 years.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Way to support the discussion, Ken. Appreciate it.
I mean, I think the last time I was at Subway, I got one of their Italian subs.
I feel like Subway had I think the decision that I made to leave Subway behind was because they were getting too fancy on me.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, the bread. I mean, everything, when I worked there in college, it was white bread and wheat bread, and that's it.
That was it.
And now they got all of these different types of bread and all these hot sandwiches, and I don't know what you're doing over there anymore, Subway. I mean, when I was there back in the day, let me sit in my right.
Whenever
Kids gather around the radio, and let me tell you how things used to be. When I was a little lad, the only hot sandwiches you had at Subway was the meatball and the steak and cheese, and you liked it. Now it's like it's all over. Well, I don't know how. Well, no, I do. We were talking about Jussie Smollett.
Oh, yeah, Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, he was getting himself a Subway sandwich back in 2019, probably around the last time that I ever had a Subway.
Well, if I remember right, it was -4 degrees in the middle of the night.
That's right.
Hey, Ken, are you aware of any Subway store in Nashville or Middle Tennessee that's open 24 hours a day?
I do not.
There you go. See, this is a Republican problem. The Republicans caused this.
Look, I'm all
the
about it.
super majority has denied us 24-hour Subway.
I'm ready to go. Call me if you're an owner of a Subway. I tell you what, Bell, Kay, and Matt Murphy will agree to be the first customers at 2:00 in the morning if
Absolutely.
you agree to keep your store open.
And I'll pour the bleach on myself.
I mean, I would think that there would be some entrepreneur that would open one downtown somewhere. I mean, my goodness gracious, the line, I would think at 1:00 in the morning just off of Lower Broad would be around the corner, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would think so.
You would think.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it is out of Hattie B's Hot Chicken.
Woo! Yes, sir.
Which I had some friends in town last year.
Make him eat the real hot one?
Well, no, it was their choice. I warned them that do not get, what is it called? Shut the cluck up.
Yes.
I said, don't do it. And that's what they call their hottest. I think it's at Hattie B's.
Hattie B's. Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha,
Hattie B's, their hottest chicken at Hattie B's is called Shut the Cluck Up. And I warned they're from New York City, my friends, and they wanted hot chicken. And they had, well, let's put it this way. We were Ubering home, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
We had enjoyed all of the amenities that Lower Broadway has to offer. And in line, I thought, well, surely before they get to the ordering stand, they'll sober up to know that they don't need to get the hottest of the chicken. But, oh, no. They wanted the full Nashville hot chicken experience.
Was this your father-in-law?
No. This is my buddy Love from up in New York. No, my father-in-law ate Prince's triple hot and was like, this is all they got? No, he literally said, this is all right.
Where's the hot stuff?
I'm like, dude, you no longer have taste buds on your your mouth.
Burned away by the different spices.
Because I tried the XL at Prince's, and it destroyed me. The only thing more concerning while I was eating it was the next day.
Yes.
And during your meal, though, what did at any point he flinch or pause or be like, I got to take a break?
So Bob eats hotter things than any other human being I've ever met. And I'm sure that there are other people that eat even hot. I mean, he grows ghost peppers and will take a bite out of them and stuff.
Goodness.
And we were eating that hot chicken, I don't know, 2 years ago or whatever it was. And about halfway through the meal, and he's eating the hottest hot chicken that Princess has to offer. I can't even get near it. And at one point, he looked up and he took a sip of his beer and he said, this is pretty hot. That's what he said.
And that you sent me a picture of the two of you in the restaurant eating. You sent me a picture of him with a giant piece of chicken in his mouth with the look on his face like, yeah, okay.
But he said, I was expecting a little more. And that's when I was told that apparently there's a mystery quadruple X that they make in the back room.
Is that on the secret menu?
I guess. I don't know.
Goodness.
Well, I'm not eating it. I'm not going near it. All right, back to Jussie Smollett, though. So Smollett orchestrated this fake crime. He paid two men $3,500 to help him orchestrate it. Police investigated the incident. Smollett claimed it happened in his upscale neighborhood of Streeterville, where there's apparently a Subway that's open 24 hours a day, much to the chagrin of Belle Cave, or at least that we don't have it here in Nashville. Anyway, so they then began probing whether Smollett paid individuals to stage the attack, and they eventually determined that he did. After initially charging Jussie Smollett with disorderly conduct, Cook County prosecutors dropped the charges against him, noting that he forfeited his $10,000 bond and that he did community service. After the decision to drop these charges, there was obvious and significant backlash. We were a part of that, nationwide backlash. It was ridiculous. You know, if we're going to take quote-unquote hate crime charges seriously, which, by the way, I hate hate crime laws. I hate hate crime laws. You heard me say it. We have crimes against individuals. We should not subdivide individuals in this country in our halls of justice based on the color of their skin. We did that for a long time in America, and it was wrong. And doing it now is still wrong. We do not charge people with more. We do not charge people and expect that they will serve longer sentences based on their motivation, or we ought not to. We do, but we ought not to. But that's another subject for another day. Hate crime legislation subdivides Americans or human beings into racial categories, and I thought that was something we were trying to get away from in our justice system, not move toward. But be that as it may, they decided to drop the charges, and that obviously faced incredible criticism and backlash. And so Cook County Judge Michael Tooman appointed a former U.S. Attorney, Dan Webb, as a special prosecutor in the case. Webb eventually refiled charges. Smollett's attorneys argued that the new charges amounted to a violation of the Double Jeopardy Clause of the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, which prevents an individual from being prosecuted twice for the same crime. Now, Jussie Smollett, in my opinion, is a dirtbag.
Advice on
anyone that would do this is a dirtbag. Jussie Smollett is a narcissistic egomaniac who wanted to take advantage of the color of his skin and his sexual orientation to advance his career and to draw attention to himself. He took away resources from an already strapped Chicago Police Department so that they were to investigate a crime. He took away from actual crimes. He took away from actual hate crimes, for that matter. But I think the Illinois Supreme Court was correct. And it's as simple as this. The Constitution of the United States agrees with them. More on that in a moment. Your thoughts on this, 615-737-9986, if you have any. Meantime, the breaking news this afternoon, Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his name from consideration for the Attorney General post of the United States of America. More on that coming up as well. It's 22 after the hour on Super Talk. Let's protect those things that protect you and your family, friends. You do so with Nashville Safe House. How do you keep your important valuables safe and secure from theft or from fire? Do you hide them in a box? Do you bury them in the backyard? No, don't do these things. You find that you can secure your valuables through Nashville Safe House and one of their incredible safes on display in their showroom. They have almost 200 safes on display and another 400 or so in their warehouse. In other words, they have a safe for you. No matter the size, no matter the shape, no matter the style, no matter the fire rating, no matter the price point, they've got something for you at Nashville Safe House. They're the largest Browning safe dealer in the United States. Nashville Safe House offers exclusive Browning safe models that aren't available from any other dealer, and they have a better selection than anyone. And remember, gun safes are always sales tax free at Nashville Safe House. They also offer professional delivery from their crews. They do not subcontract out delivery. They don't want somebody that they don't know in your house, and you shouldn't either. NashvilleSafeHouse.com or across the street from City Cemetery on 4th Avenue South. When you stop by, tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Nashville Safe House.
Gates drops out. Jussie Smollett conviction overturned. These stories and more at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Things are going well for Bell in there. It's 26 minutes after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We love you, Bell K. And we love Ken Weaver behind you, and I love all of you. My name is Matt Murphy, and this is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Our listening audience knows more about the timing on Subway than I would have ever given them credit for. For example, Bell, we are told by one of our loyal listeners that the Subway in Dixon, Tennessee, which is at a truck stop, is open 24 hours.
Well, that actually makes sense because it's at a truck stop, but I don't live anywhere near Dixon, so that didn't do me any good.
Well,
Where's my meatball sub?
I mean, what do you want? You want a Subway in your house?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
Have you seen those are great commercials?
No,
have you
I
seen
take that back. I don't want it in the house. I would like it out on the porch.
Okay, that's fine. That's all good. Have you seen those commercials? I forget what football player it is, but it's they air them on Sunday afternoons during the football games where he's got a Taco Bell in his house.
Yes.
It's very funny.
I could go for one of
they,
those, but again, on the porch.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I understand you don't want the smells, but a lot of conversation about when subways around town close and when they don't close. And Statman says, I just looked it up. The subway in Skeeterville only stays open until 2 a.m. nowadays. Well, there you go. So I guess they started closing down themselves. Query me this. How much does a Subway sandwich cost, since they feel like they need to pay all these multi-million-dollar sports figures to advertise their product? I don't know. Probably a lot more than they should. I mean, gone are the days of the $5 footlong, I'll tell you that. Now,
hey, just for the record, it's not the smells in the house. I prefer the help to stay on the porch.
Oh, you just don't want them around you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how are you going to order? You going to go to the porch?
I write it out on a piece of paper and
slip
I
it
have
under?
somebody walk it out to them.
Well, what do you say you do here? I've got to take the reports. Well, you take the reports? No, my secretary does it. But
son, if you're going to work here, you're going to have to stay off the drugs.
Sean has a thought about Jussie Smollett. Hello, Sean.
Hey, Matt. How's it going, buddy?
I'm doing well, man.
So, hey, listen, I worked up in Chicago, and I was up there at the time that this all happened. I was in the detective division. I left just prior to this happening. And I can tell you the work that went into it and the man hours and the effort and the video tracking and everything was substantial. The reason that the Cook County State's attorney, who was Kim Fox, who's just getting ready to finally step out of the office, thank God, the reason that her office, she decided to drop the charges, I don't know if you remember this, Michelle Obama's aide in the White House, Tina Chen, made several phone calls to Kim Fox and implored on behalf of Jussie to drop the charges. And that's why the special investigator, that's why Dan Webb got involved and what have you. The city of Chicago still has a civil suit against him that's still going for, I want to say it's about $300,000 or something, to kind of recoup as much of the man hours that were contributed to it. But on the near west side of Chicago, where they filmed Empire at the CineSpace location, I used to work what we called side jobs, secondary employment there as security while they would film. And when this broke in the news, a bunch of us that worked the filming of Empire, when we heard the story that, Jussie was out there in the middle of the night going to Subway and, sub-zero temperatures, we were all calling BS because we saw the way he would order his lunch. He would never go to the catering area. He would have his lackey, get his food prepared for him. And he was so nitpicky and meticulous in how he wanted his lunch or his dinner, depending on how long the filming day was. We were like, there is no way in God's green earth this guy eats at Subway.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the entire, you know better than me. You were there. You were up there in the midst of it. But I remember I was in Birmingham, Alabama at the time. And I remember even at the time, Sean, that, we looked at the circumstances, and it wasn't 24 hours before people started saying there's zero chance that any of this is true. I'm sorry that I got to run, but I do. Sean, thank you for the call, and thank you for the insight. Obviously, we're glad to have you down here in God's country, Middle Tennessee, out of the suburbs of Chicago or in the downtown areas. It's time for news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Now, former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, President-elect Trump's pick for Attorney General, announcing he's withdrawing his name for consideration. Gaetz was facing scrutiny over allegations of sexual misconduct and illicit drug use. Here's ABC's Selena Wang.
We know that Donald Trump is looking for loyal figures around him, especially for a role like Attorney General. But all the controversies around him, the fact that Department of Justice had been investigating him for years, although those charges were not ultimately filed, and the fact that you had this ongoing House Ethics Committee that was abruptly stopped when Gates dropped out of Congress. All of that has only been mounting as we also continue to see the drip drop of more details about the allegations of sexual misconduct involving Matt Gaetz.
The Illinois Supreme Court today overturned the conviction of former Empire TV star Jussie Smollett for lying about a hate crime. Smollett struck a deal with prosecutors over charges he lied about being the victim of a 2019 racist and homophobic attack in Chicago. But a special prosecutor appointed the next year charged and convicted Smollett. ABC senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky.
According to the Supreme Court in Illinois, there was a legitimate agreement between Cook County prosecutors and Jussie Smollett to resolve the case. He agreed to forfeit a $10,000 bond, and he did 15 hours of community service, and the expectation was he would not be charged. And so the justices said it was improper for those charges to reconstitute themselves under the direction of a special prosecutor a year later.
That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, friends, Matt Murphy, PAI Medical is your one-stop shop for all things hair loss in Nashville, Tennessee. Guys, they treat men just like you at all stages of hair loss. No matter where you are in this journey, that journey's not going to stop because you want it to, right? If you've noticed hair loss, if you've noticed a thinning, that's going to continue until you do something about it. And I would suggest you call We Grow Hair and see where you are in the process. It takes an initial consultation. You go to WeGrowHair.com to find out a little bit more. You can make a call and make that appointment today. Whether you're just beginning to lose your hair or you've been losing it for a while, We Grow Hair has a procedure for you. I went through the FDA-approved laser treatment to make sure that I wasn't losing anything on my crown, preventing further hair loss, and making my hair thicker as a result. You can do this as well, or if you're a little bit further along, they have other procedures for you where results are guaranteed, like the ARTIS robotic FUE hair transplant and the multi-unit hair grafting procedure. It's all available at WeGrowHair.com. WeGrowHair.com, PAI Medical. Call them today, 615-376-6010, 376-6010.
mattress shopping should be.
So we live in a dangerous world. You know that by now. Every day we hear stories about shootings here in Nashville. We hear stories about mass shootings around the country. They're always sad, but have you ever considered what you would do if you found yourself in that circumstance? I would never wish this on you, but I hope that you are well trained if it comes to that. I know I am, thanks to Defend Systems. Defend Systems is a life safety and security consultation firm based right here in Middle Tennessee. They engage in active shooter response training, workplace violence prevention, site surveys and threat assessment, security improvement, emergency and intruder action plans, rapid response medical, all customized to your facility. And they will customize it to your specifications, meaning they will go as in-depth as you'd like, and they will do a light touch on certain areas if that is your desire as well. It's all customized for you, your employees, the people that you manage, your schoolmates, your classmates, and yes, anywhere people gather, they can help with Defend Systems. So defendsystems.com is the place to go to find out more. Call Brink or one of his teammates, and he can help assist you. That number, 615-236-6484, 236-6484. It's a dangerous world. Hope is not a plan. It's time to get trained with Defend Systems. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for being around. We appreciate every moment of your time. We've got Brian Wilson coming up at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Cold outside. I mean, it's cold, but it ought to be cold. It's November 21st, after all. I heard Ken Weaver earlier today say that with the wind, and the wind is just absolutely whipping out there, that wind chills in certain areas are into the 30s, which is, I mean, first time this year, but like we say, it's about time. Final thought on Jussie Smollett. So the Constitution of the United States of America, and primarily the Bill of Rights, exist to obviously form a basic structure of government, to provide for the rule of law, but also to protect the rights of man against intrusive government. The Fifth Amendment to our Constitution of the United States of America, and I'm not here to bore you, but I'll read it to you. It has to do with our system of justice and how in our system of justice we have long maintained and believe that it is better for 10 guilty men to go free than it is for one innocent man to go to jail. I'm pausing to make sure everyone understands that, and I think you do. That's just the basic way that our system is set up, or at least it ought to be. That doesn't mean that the system is perfect. Far from it. It's just the best system on God's green earth. But the design of the system is to default to freedom. The design of the system is to ensure that the governments instituted by man do not become too controlling of their population to the point that innocent individuals are going to jail. And part of that process was the writing of the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. Our founding fathers well understood what oppressive government could do with a judicial system that had its thumb on human rights. And so they wrote things like this: no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment to a grand jury, except in cases arising in the naval or land forces, or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. In other words, you subdivide our United States military. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. And that's the one we're talking about here. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So the idea is that the government of the United States of America gets one crack at the apple. Now, obviously, there have been cases where the government takes two cracks. There are two basic courts of law, the criminal courts and the civil courts. And because those are considered to be separate tracks, I mean, the best example is OJ, right? There are also considered to be two separate tracks when it comes to state and federal courts. And so sometimes if a state court fails in terms of getting a conviction, you might see an attempt on the federal level or whatnot, but that's not what we're talking about in the Smollett case. OJ was the great example of a failure in the criminal courts, and then you come back, and because the standard is somewhat different in the civil courts, in that case, the civil courts got a little bit of comeuppance where the criminal courts failed. So 9037 writes in and says, I thought double jeopardy meant when you were tried, acquitted, and then you tried again. Juicy was never tried. Charges were dropped. Well, actually, I don't think charges were dropped in as much as, well, I guess they did drop the charges in as much as they came to an agreement. It is much like a plea. And I'm not saying they did anything right here. Don't get me wrong. But the state agreed to an arrangement with Jussie Smollett. Should they have? No, of course not. I got no love for this guy. And obviously what he did was wrong, and it was taxing not just on the citizens of Chicago, but it was a burden on the United States of America because, yet again, a black man was making claims that turned out not to be true. So the next time one of these things, it's a cry wolf scenario and all of that. I'm not justifying what Cook County did, but the prosecutors made an arrangement with him that if he forfeited his $10,000 bond and did community service, that they would drop the charges against him. And then because of public outcry, they decided that that wasn't good enough, so they reneged on their promise. You have to separate the details of the crime and even separate whether or not that promise should have been made to understand that the state cannot get involved in making promises to criminal defendants, and the criminal defendants does their end of the bargain, and then you come back and the state goes, you know what, we've decided we're going to charge you anyway with that.
It's exactly why Cosby had his conviction overturned. Same reason. They made a deal.
Because they made a deal, and then they went back on the deal. So I can still be disgusted by Jussie Smollett and his behavior. Now, Smollett was found guilty of the refiled charges. James Lynn sentenced Smollett to 150 days in jail, 30 months of probation in March of 2022 after a 7-hour hearing. He was ordered to pay restitution of $120,000 and $25,000 in criminal fines after being found guilty of 5 counts of disorderly conduct December of 2021. He never served any time. Released on a bond pending the results of the appellate process. He was not required to put any money down, but agreed to appear in court when required. So, double jeopardy is there for a reason. It's not necessarily to protect someone like Jussie Smollett, but it most certainly is there to protect you and to protect me and to protect us against the government attempting over and over again to take bites at the apple when they fail in their efforts to secure a conviction. Should they have agreed to this? No. But because they did, you got to abide by it, and so says the Illinois Supreme Court. I told you that might surprise you, my position on this issue, but it is my position nonetheless. What will happen with Bill Hagerty? That's another subject that we've not gotten to today. Donald Trump continues to make selections for his cabinet, and he has yet to make a selection, at least the last I saw, which was about an hour and a half ago. I admit that I've not looked since, but I keep up with the news here in the studio room. So I think it would cross my desk if it occurred. There's still consideration for Senator Bill Hagerty for that post. I guess I don't have time to do it today, but I would be curious, not necessarily whether you think that Senator Bill Hagerty would be a good Secretary of the Treasury. I think he would be a fine Secretary of the Treasury. But who would make a good replacement? Senator Bill Lee, I think this is right. I looked this up for Florida earlier. Yeah, Bill Lee would appoint. And there are a number of names. I'm hearing, names like Glenn Jacobs. Here's an interesting idea that I heard floated to me by a politician earlier today on condition of anonymity. Glenn Jacobs is known to be running for governor of the state of Tennessee. And while Glenn Jacobs has not officially announced, he would tell us if he were sitting here, and has told us in previous interviews, that he is certainly looking at where he can serve the public, and he would like to serve the entire state of Tennessee in some capacity. Beyond
When's
his
mayoral term end?
I don't know.
Because this is his second term, so he's
I think he's term limited.
Yeah.
I don't know when it ends, but I know this, that Glenn Jacobs is going to throw his hat in the ring for public service somewhere else. So the suggestion is now that if the governor so chose, now I've heard a number of names that aren't on anybody's radar screen as to where this could be going if Governor Bill Lee makes the appointment. But it would be interesting if Governor Bill Lee appointed Glenn Jacobs, then that would put him in that lane, and it would remove him from the lane of running for governor in 2 years. Just an interesting thought. Other names, I mean, the usual suspects, Cameron Sexton, the Speaker of the House, Jack Johnson, the Senate Majority Leader, is another name, although Jack has indicated every time I've talked with him about it that he loves serving the people of the state of Tennessee, so I don't know necessarily that he would want to go to Washington, D.C., but, I mean, heck, I don't think he would deny it if he were asked. And then all of the Congress people would be expected names to come up as well. An interesting cascade should Bill Hagerty be selected as Secretary of the Treasury. Ray says, a corrupt district attorney made a deal with him, Matt. Yes, Ray, that doesn't change the fact that a deal was made. If there's a district attorney that is corrupted in an individual circumstance, that is the fault of the political machine that is surrounding that individual and the voters themselves. It's not the defendant's fault that the DA is corrupt. So the double jeopardy still stands. You cannot make an arrangement with someone in good faith that someone fulfill all of the arrangement obligations that would be required of them and then renege on that promise to not bring those same charges up again, which is what happens in Smollett. I don't have to like Smollett. I don't have to like the DA. I don't have to like the corruption. I don't have to like Chicago. I don't have to like Illinois. I don't have to like Subway sandwiches. I do, but I don't have to. But I can still read the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, and that's what the Illinois State Supreme Court did. It is 10 minutes until 3 o'clock. We'll check in with Brian Wilson next on Super Talk. I ran out of time before I got the Jaguar commercial. Have you seen the Jaguar commercial? Jaguars apparently decided to Bud Light themselves at a much different price point. Maybe we'll get to it tomorrow. Maybe I don't want to program Brian Wilson's show, but maybe Brian knows about the Jaguar commercial. Who knows? Let's find out. Hey, Brian.
I had a Jaguar once. I had an old Jaguar, and it was a great car on the road. But you know what happened is that the older Jaguars, when Ford took over Jaguar, they basically quit making parts for the old Jaguars, and you couldn't get them.
Oh no!
And so if something broke. You'd have a really hard time finding parts. It just got to be too much trouble, so I sold it.
Well,
sold it actually about 2 days before the tornado. It would have been hit by the tornado had it still been in my possession.
Oh, that's great timing, Brian Wilson. Come on.
Turned out well, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, apparently Jaguars decided that if you want a new Jaguar, you better be wearing a dress. Apparently, according to this advertisement that I saw, because there's a lot of dudes in dresses in the Jag ad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't have to tell you, Brian. You've been following it. The big news: Matt Gaetz is out. Withdraws that name from nomination.
What do you? When did that happen? No.
What do you?
When you it's just like the biggest story of the day, and I said, "What? I better go find that story. I'd missed that one completely." No, and you know what? This happens a lot. He did a test run yesterday on Capitol Hill. Had the vice president showing him around, and I think somebody just pulled him aside and said, "Matt, here are the numbers," and it's not going to happen. So he just decided rather than have a big fight about it, and it was something he probably couldn't overcome. He just decided discretion was the better part of valor and withdrew.
What are you hearing? I mean, obviously we're still waiting on Treasury Secretary.
Right.
And for everything that I hear, I mean, you probably have better sources than I do, Brian, that Bill Hagerty is still remains on a short list of people that Trump's considering.
Yeah, it was really interesting. He was with the president in Boca Chica when they were watching the rocket take off, Elon Musk rocket. And I said, you know what? He got on the plane with Trump. He's had time with Trump. He's friends with Trump. Sounds like he must be looked at being pretty seriously. And you're right. I was listening a moment ago. It would set off a whole chain of events here in Tennessee if he were to be given that position and were to be confirmed, which I think he would be easily if he got it. And so, what happens? I keep hearing that whatever happens, if that happens,
mm-hmm.
that then the governor would put somebody in that position for 2 years. Who basically would be the caretaker until an election was held.
Right.
But the position would be used largely to clear the path for Marsha Blackburn, who wants to be governor.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of three bank shots here that you have to sort of look at.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's the lead? Is it Matt Gaetz, Brian?
Yeah, Matt Gaetz. I'll talk about that. And Pete Hegseth was up on the Hill today doing his tour. And how is that going?
Mm-hmm.
I have looked at the police report on Pete Hegseth, and I'll tell you something I found that was extremely interesting. That I'm not hearing anywhere else. That's because most reporters don't take time to actually read the darn thing.
Well, some reporters can't read it all. But anyway, Brian can, and Brian will relate it to you coming up moments from now, right after Ken Weaver's newscast. And Ken Weaver's newscast is coming up right now at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Have a great afternoon, folks. So long. Hug.